Hello and welcome to another episode of This Zoo. Today we're going to take a closer look at data. What is it? What can you do with it? What's it worth? With me to help understand what data really can do for me is Erin Avery. You're in Houston, I take it.
I am in Houston today.
And from Wales, the man who came up with the idea for silicon chips, Chris Rickson.
I love it when you oversell me. It makes me feel great.
We'll start ladies first. Erin, data has taken on a new role in what we call the digital workplace, right? It's everywhere. You can get it from everywhere. But how do you classify data? How do you look at data versus just bits and pieces?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's become the currency of, you could say, the digital business, because that sounds really cool and sexy, but the reality is that data has become the currency of every business, and the businesses that are really going to thrive and advance are the ones that figure out how to make use of the abundant amount of data. I mean, absolutely the abundance of data that's available out there as, technology starts to, or it not even starts, as technology is embedded in every part of the company, whatever company we're talking about, their value chain. You have this opportunity to find information at every intersection, but the flip side is that there's so much data. You actually have to turn that data into something meaningful. And so you have data that is, uninteresting, that's just being generated, and then there's the data that if you pull it together, apply some thought to it or some analytics, and you can get something really interesting. And that's where the currency of data for the digital business becomes really really interesting. A quick example, my local grocery store probably about 2 years ago started sending coupons to my home that were tailored based on my shopping habits with the little frequent shopper card.
Scary, isn't it?
It was scary and yet kind of cool, because I kind of wondered what they'd been doing with my data for the last 20 years. So I'm glad to hear that they see that they finally started using it, and it benefited me. But recently, about a week ago, I started getting a little magazine in the mail, and the coupons are actually in the magazine with recipes for how to use the coupon, and it's basically, in theory, inspiring me, the consumer, to go use the thing I already do, and then maybe buy some other things that could go with that. And so I'm really impressed with the way that they took data they hadn't done anything with for 20 years, started making it cheaper for me to shop there, and now they're trying to direct my spending habits.
So, Chris, are there any analog businesses left, even in the depth of Cambria?
There's a lot of analog businesses around here, Alf. There really are. Most of them in the production of real things. But here's the interesting thing. Right here in the middle of a rural area, the bulk of the effort and the labor and the actual products that are being produced here are either livestock or arable. But the technology infrastructure that is now going into the production of that, in terms of what they are starting to call integrated farming and all kinds of other new buzzwords are emerging, but the digital platform underlying the efficiency of even what were traditionally analog businesses is quite substantial. Everything from infrastructure that's driving itself, but not just driving itself, it's integrated to a platform that deals with automatic ordering of supplies when the tractor itself detects that it's getting low on a certain kind of seed, etc., etc. So, there are analog businesses left, but they are starting to have a digital backbone. Certainly here, obviously in the developed world. So
with Internet of Things, they talk about how even the seeds, each individual seed will have some kind of mechanism to talk back to us, which is quite amazing if you think about it. But is all data that these companies, whether they're analog or digital, I actually don't think that there are hardly any analog, really analog businesses left. All this data coming in, is there better? Is all data created equal, or is there better and worse data? Erin?
I don't think all data is created equal. I think that you've got junk data, that you've got valuable data, but the bulk of the data probably lives somewhere in the middle, and that's where the real opportunity, I think, for organizations is to figure out how to make use of that really unstructured data that lives in the middle, how to turn it into something really interesting, and take a coupon and put it in a a magazine with recipes, and all of a sudden you've got my grocery bill somehow tripling on the last trip that I went to the supermarket.
Yeah. If we take it a step further and out of our lives and into, let's say, IT operations, how can they use it? So data is created unequal. How does one find the right data, and how can something like IT operations, which is mainly our customers, how can they make use of it?
Chris, you want to take that, or you want me to?
Well, I will just offer a comment. This is really your field of expertise, Erin, but what I will say is that it's always been a data-rich environment, IT operations, right? There are lots and lots of systems monitoring lots and lots of detail about other systems out there, and we've relied on interoperability and data, both structured and unstructured, for a long time. What we have now is a huge amount of analytic power to bring to bear on the challenge, and that helps us not only do the crunching and draw relationships, it actually helps us identify what new relationships we might draw, but also helps us identify what's useful and what isn't. And I think that the ability, the democratization of access to huge computational power, things that would have taken a supercomputer 5-10 years ago, enabling us to use analytic methods that were theory.
Right. And I think that I was talking to somebody earlier, and they said, CEOs, CIOs, CXOs really see IT operations as a great use case for making use, a great first use case within the organization for making use of data. Because to Chris's point, IT operations professionals, organizations, there's always been a lot of data there. We've used it in a way that worked for the way that we worked, literally. But I think that we're at this interesting tipping point, and this would probably be a whole nother zoo about the two kind of speeds IT organizations, IT ops organizations are employing, the more traditional versus the more innovative model. But I think the real crux of it becomes the application layer, and then that starts to, that just takes the conversation on a entirely different tangent. But when we think about data, the way that we've always used it, there's analytics, analyzing the information we have within the context that we've always done. But I think the real opportunity, you have to keep doing that to keep running your infrastructure and ops organization. But the real opportunity is to harness that data in concert with some additional data, maybe social sentiment data, some information on the financial performance of your business, perhaps on all these different metrics, and start pulling that together and start drawing conclusions or pointing to the future and saying, based on, I've gathered these couple different data points and put them together, put them in the blender, if you will, and holy cow, the future looks really different when I put this data in context of each other. So I think that there's the data that's embedded, analyzing the data that's embedded with our existing processes, but I think there's a massive opportunity for IT ops professionals to start using their data that we have, because we have a ton of it, and putting that data in the context of some of this data that's being now generated by other parts of the business value chain. So I think it's an exciting opportunity.
Chris, if I told you that I think that these guys should harvest our social exhaust very much like that retail example, or like Target does, so they get to know the customers, not a lot of IT operations managers will really take me serious. When will that change? Because that is one of the key data that they could really turn around and use.
I think you're right. I don't think it's instinct for a lot of operations management people to think about the social information that's coming in. However, I think that the situation will force the change. I think the expectation now is that when you enter any kind of interaction yourself in your private life, you expect your service provider in whatever domain to actually have quite a lot of contextual information about you, without venturing into creepy territory. But you do expect at least them to know about who you are, where you are, any preferences, and to make a certain amount of extrapolation based on past behavior and any relationships that you may have with other customers of that service provider. All that kind of stuff that is not too sensitive, I think that is becoming the expectation, and that will force IT organizations to respond in kind. And Erin mentioned something very interesting there about tracking sentiment analysis as well, and just using all of that to build a holistic picture of the business that you're serving. I think you'll be able to use then point and huge analytic power at all of that and start to draw out some brand new relationships, things we've never thought about before as providers of technology services. So if it isn't instinctive yet, I think people are going to have to start learning it pretty quickly.
Great. Well, thank you both for coming to the Zoom, and for the rest of you out there, take care, be safe, bye-bye.